C'est ainsi que l'on croit pouvoir venir à bout de la résistance d'un peuple. Mais à اشرف, l'espoir revient vite, car malgré les murs, chacun sait que cet espoir est partagé par des milliers de frères et de sœurs réfugiés à travers le monde. Vous en êtes ici, chère Myriam Radjavi, la représentante. Alors l'énergie revient avec le désir de vivre et le rêve d'un monde juste, assurant la paix et la protection de chacun. La paix et la protection de chacun, n'est-ce pas le thème de notre réunion d'aujourd'hui? Dans un camp, il ne s'agit pas de survivre pour soi, mais pour les autres. Les mamans, les mères, ont la pratique quotidienne de ce sacrifice. Nous connaissons tous l'exemple magnifique que nous donne la petite Chagaillé dans sa lettre à Madame Pillay. Et voilà ce qui distingue le bourreau de la victime, le geôlier de son prisonnier. Les uns préparent l'avenir, tandis que les autres détruisent le présent. Préparer l'avenir, chers et tendres amis d'Ashraf, c'est le prix de votre sacrifice. Mais ce n'est pas le seul. Il faut compter aussi avec l'exemple que vous donnez à tous les opprimés et le message d'espoir écrit avec votre sang que vous adressez à l'humanité. Je vous remercie. Je donne la parole à Madame Mariam Radjavi.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, thank you all. Well, it is a momentous moment to be here, especially after so many achievements by the Iranian resistance that could not have been possible without your support. As we are standing in this UN building, let us remind ourselves of the values this house represents. The hope of a world to safeguard human rights, peace, democracy, and prevent genocide. 66 years ago, this organization was established to protect and represent the wishes of people in need of security and dignity, to voice the unheard. With the expanding Arab Spring in the region, what would be UN role? My intervention, therefore, is focused on a pivotal question. Why is the UN delaying in its moral, ethical, and historic obligations towards this challenge? But before we proceed to answer this, I would like to express my gratitude to organizers of this conference, which is addressing human rights in Iran and the important issue of Ashraf. I would also like to express my gratitude to Madame Mitterrand as the great First Lady of Human Rights, who has always been a pioneer in defense of the Iranian people and Ashraf residents. The Iranian resistance has deep respect for democracy, human rights, peace, and the right to asylum. Clearly, safeguarding these values is the purpose of the United Nations. Over 120,000 members of this resistance have been killed by a religious fascism in a struggle to safeguard such values. I have a dream that one day our homeland Iran would be the land of freedom, democracy, equality, peace, coexistence, a land in which the rule of law and respect for human rights and international law are established. On last Sunday, the mullahs hanged 23 people only in one day. During 8 months, 490 people have been executed. Protests are violently suppressed. Recently, hundreds of people have been arrested during protests in Oromia and Tabriz in northwest Iran. Prisoners, especially family members of Ashraf residents, are mistreated and tortured to death. In view of all this, it is disappointing that the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Mrs. Pillay, did not mention the gross violation of human rights in Iran during the UN Human Rights Council. Developments in the Middle East and the fall of dictators has clearly convinced Khamenei that he must quickly obtain the nuclear bomb and reinforce his position in Iraq. His main objective is to suppress uprisings in Iran with Ashraf at its center. Camp Ashraf is the bastion of hope for the Iranian people and cannot be separated from the Iranian people's uprisings. Following every uprising in Iran, the mullahs attack Ashraf. Last month, Professor Jean Ziegler, Vice Chair of the UN Human Rights Advisory Committee, described Ashraf as the focal point of democratic values that continuously undermines the legitimacy of the mullah's regime. Therefore, the plot to destroy Camp Ashraf is continuing in a most inhuman way. The UNHCR statement on September 13 about the legal status of Ashraf residents underlines the responsibility of the UN, UNAMI, and Human Rights Commissioner, Madame Pillay. The UN Refugee Agency has declared the residents of Ashraf as asylum seekers. It stresses that international law requires that they must be able to benefit from basic protection of their security and well-being. It also calls on the Iraqi government to extend its deadline for closure of Ashraf. This was a crucial step, but it is not enough. Bearing in mind there is no rule of law, no respect for international law, in Iraq at the moment, it is the prime duty and responsibility of the international community to safeguard those needs in practice. Firstly, it is crucial that the UN Secretary General and UNAMI take practical measures to guarantee internationally recognized protection of Ashraf. This would be realized through the Secretary General's instruction. Declaring Ashraf as a civilian zone under UN monitoring is necessary. He should then order the stationing of a UN monitoring team in Ashraf. In the UN monitoring team had not left Ashraf in July 2010, the April 8 massacre would not have happened. Secondly, the UNHCR should recognize all Ashraf residents as political refugees in order to prevent attacks by the Iranian regime and its Iraqi proxies. Thirdly, the United States must participate in securing and implementing the protection which is underscored by UNHCR's statement and, in particular, prevent the Iraqi government from violating the rights of Ashraf residents, while providing necessary protective measures to able UN team observing mission. I would also like to call on the Swiss government as the guardian of Geneva Conventions to take urgent measures in order to guarantee the protection of the residents of Ashraf. Finally, I would like to mention a few matters that have not been resolved since the April 8 massacre by the UNHCR.